The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess has to be one of the best Zelda games of the entire series, yet it is often overlooked in the Zelda community. Now when I say overlooked, I don't mean that people think it's bad, they just think it's too similar to Ocarina of Time and doesn't bring much new stuff to the franchise. This could not be more wrong. Twilight Princess has its own unique and awesome story, art style, themes, gameplay, music, and so much more. Twilight Princess stands out in the Zelda franchise for not being hesitant to show some dark and spooky themes, as well as some deep and emotional moments, such as the dark backstory behind the Twilight Realm and the history of Hyrule. The game introduces Link as this humble farm boy who herds goats for Ordon, a small village outside of Hyrule. You start off the game by doing tasks around the village to get familiar with its people, especially the children. The village kids see you as a big brother figure and look up to you. It's kind of funny that when you teach them your skills with a slingshot and a sword, they're actually the ones teaching you. After you teach the kids how to use a sword, Tallow runs into the forest chasing a monkey and gets trapped by monsters. You chase after him and navigate through the woods yourself in hopes of rescuing him. After saving him, you meet up with Russell, the village swordsman, who wishes you luck on your journey to Hyrule. The next day, after herding goats, Ilia, Link's childhood friend, notices that Epona is injured and takes her to the spring to heal her. After confronting her, a group of boblins invades the scene and promptly kidnaps Colin, Ilia, and the other village children. After coming to, your courage drives you to chase after the children. You run into the forest only to find a big black wall stopping you. Entering into the twilight, you can immediately notice that something is off. The atmosphere of the twilight has a yellowish haze covering the environment, which now has a slightly turquoise hue. There's also these black squares that float around in the air, which signify an almost simulated reality. Light feels very unnatural and doesn't seem to come from the sky, but just lingers around. Not to mention that the enemies have now transformed into their Twilight equivalents, taking on new looks and creepier sounds. The music in the Twilight perfectly complements this eerie and uneasy feeling and is based on dissonant synthesizer tones with creepy noises in the background. Take a listen to the music yourself. The sounds perfectly complement that eeriness and creepiness and increase your immersion in the game. While most people who enter the Twilight become spirits, as the hero chosen by the gods, Link transforms into a wolf instead, which offers many interesting and innovative gameplay mechanics. As a wolf, you can't be seen by spirits and are basically a ghost in their world while they are ghosts in yours. It really goes to show how there are two distinct worlds that have a hard time mixing together. When you are a wolf, you gain special abilities that you don't have while in human form. For one, you can dig in the ground, which allows you to uncover buried rupees and to dig under some fences or walls. You also have sharpened senses that allow you to see things that you can't normally, such as spirits or dig spots. You can also use your senses to follow scent trails that lead to important people or locations. Another cool thing you can do is walk on tightropes, which allows you to navigate through areas in a creative way while a wolf. You also stumble upon 6 howling stones throughout the game, where as a wolf, you can howl familiar songs to summon golden wolves that appear across the map. This allows you to meet with the Hero of Time and learn advanced sword techniques, which makes sword fighting much more fun and engaging. Speaking of fun and engaging, a lot of people tend to rate a game based on how of an enjoyable experience it is to play. Twilight Princess offers many interesting fighting mechanics and items that make the game highly replayable. The sword combat in this game is very fun and intuitive, especially when you learn the hidden skills. These include the ending blow and the backslice, both of which make you feel really cool when executed properly, and I find myself using these in almost every sword fight. Additionally, after fighting a stronger enemy, if you press A at the right time, you can do a cool sword twirl while sheathing it. Now, Midna offers a cool alternative to the spin attack when you're a wolf, which are typically called Midna attacks. Midna surrounds you with an energy field, and when you release it, you attack all the enemies inside it. It actually deals a crazy amount of damage, being able to one-shot most enemies. She also helps you by letting you do so-called Midna jumps, which is where Midna positions herself where you need to jump, and then you can jump by Z-targeting and pressing A. You can only do these in certain spots though. Either way, they offer a unique way to progress through an area that's available only when you're a wolf. The items in this game are really cool. You've got the return of some classic items, such as the iron boots, the hero's bow, and the slingshot, but there's also plenty of new additions as well. These include the Gale Boomerang, the Spinner, the Double Claw Shot, yes, there are 2 of them in this game, the Ball and Chain, the Dominion Rod, Water Bombs, Bombings, and the Hawkeye, which is basically a sight for the bow so you can shoot things that are really far away. Some of the items you get are really only useful in the dungeon where you get them, such as the Iron Boots, the Spinner, and the Dominion Rod. However, although these items have really niche uses, they're cool nonetheless. For example, the Iron Boots have this cool feature, which is that they're magnetic and let you walk on these magnetic walls and ceilings, which is a really fun way of moving around. Just so you know, the next section of this video will contain game spoilers. If you haven't played the game yet, please skip to the timestamp on the screen now. Midna has to be one of the best characters in any Zelda game. You meet her when you first stumble into the Twilight, and she chooses you to be her servant in order to get revenge on the King of Twilight. When you first meet Midna, she is snarky and very demanding, treating you like a servant. However, as you progress through the game and dispel the Twilight from the world, she starts to lose this facade, and her true colors and feelings start to show. She really starts to connect with Link emotionally and starts asking you if you would help her versus having her tell you what to do. Once you clear all the Twilight from the world, your new quest is to enter the Twilight Realm and overthrow the King of Twilight. Before you do this though, Midna tells you the backstory of the Twili and how they were once citizens of Hyrule that were banished to the Twilight Realm for using evil magic. Midna stands out as the best companion in the entire Zelda series due to her relatable character development, special powers, and very deep emotional connection to the player in a major part of the game's storyline. Many companions in the franchise simply offer guidance or assistance and can be very annoying. Midna, on the other hand, plays a crucial role in the actual story, making her just as important narratively as a main character like Link or Zelda. Arguably, Midna is a second main character and not just a companion. Zant is the King of the Twilight and is the main villain for the majority of the game. He was denied the power of the King of Twilight by his ancestors, and with Ganondorf banished to the Twilight Realm as well, Ganondorf appears to Zant as a god who passes his power onto him in order to help get Ganondorf back to the world of light. Zant always appears as this absolute evil figure, acting as the embodiment of darkness. However, when you meet up with him face to face in the Twilight Realm, he acts very differently. Instead of moving slowly and talking menacingly, like you would expect from an all-imposing evil figure, he's very erratic and moves very quickly. Also, when you fight him, he only uses attacks that other bosses have already used throughout the game. And when he's not intimidating another boss, he literally flails around hopelessly swinging knives at you while spinning. All this is to show that underneath the facade of darkness and evil he puts on, he's nothing. The only reason he's still alive is because of Ganondorf reviving him. Ganondorf is the main villain in Twilight Princess, just like most other Zelda games. However, since Zant is the antagonist for a majority of the game, some people say that Ganondorf was written in at the last second and isn't really a main character. I don't think this is the case, because Zant is his own character in his own right. As I mentioned before, without the instruction of Ganondorf, he's really just this crazy guy who doesn't really know what he's doing. This makes the battle with him feel very anticlimactic and pointless, as you feel like you're just fighting the servant to the absolute evil of Ganondorf, which makes the rage feel that much more impactful towards him when you do face him. The world building in Twilight Princess is very immersive and captivating. From the calm, distant village of Ordon to the bottom of Lake Hylia, every corner of the world is filled with detail. The game has many elements of both fantasy and realism, creating a world that feels both familiar and new at the same time. Each area has its own unique history and characters with distinct architectural styles that reflect the history and theme of that area. The game's dungeons, from the Forest Temple to the Arbiter's Grounds, are very well designed. One of the best dungeons in the game is Lakebed Temple, since it's one of the dungeons where the state of the dungeon changes as you progress through it. Through nearly every doorway, there's a water channel that connects adjacent rooms. As you progress through the dungeon, you use the central staircase to guide water to different parts of it, making rooms accessible that weren't previously. The dungeons are not simply places filled with enemies and puzzles, but important parts of the world, each with its own unique purpose and integration into the world. For example, the Forest Temple is a dwelling place for the monkeys of Faron Woods, and the Goron Mines is an industrial mine filled with cranes and various machinery. The storyline in Twilight Princess is pretty much linear, but don't think that you're just following a straight path from start to finish. In between all the main quest content, there are moments where you can just wander around and do countless amount of side quest material. Whether you're riding on Epona across Hyrule Field, searching for secret rupee chests, or just talking to people, there's always something to do. One standout is the Malamark quest. So there's this kid named Mallow from your hometown of Ordon, who's basically a baby, but somehow manages to run the most successful shop in Hyrule. He starts out by taking over an old shop in Kakariko and sells cool stuff like a Hylian shield and the Hawkeye. Then, he and the Goron elders start a fundraising campaign to repair the bridge to Castletown and to acquire a shop there. Once you fund the new location, you go to Castletown and find this. Of course you can tell which one it is because it has his face plastered all over it, but when you enter it, this is what you see. There really are no words to describe this shop. During your adventures, you bump into this guy named Giovanni. Turns out, he got too greedy and ended up turning into solid gold. Anyway, he asks you for a favor. Find 20 Poes, which are basically ghosts you can only spot while you're in wolf form, and kill them. You do it, but when you come back, it didn't really solve the problem. He's just able to move around a bit. So he asks you to collect 40 more. Once you painstakingly collect all 60, he can move again and rewards you with a bottle of Great Fairy's Tears. If none of those sound appealing, there's this girl named Agatha who's all about bugs. She's got this quest where she asks you to collect these golden bugs for her. Every time you bring her a bug, she gives you rupees to share this happiness with you. And it's not just about the money, she loves to say crazy bug facts. Every time you give her a bug, she hits you with some wild line like this. Anyway, you keep collecting bugs, and when you finally collect all 24, she's super thankful. There's also plenty of other side quests, such as donating 1,000 rupees to this guy in Castletown, to the hidden skills, to countless minigames such as gliding with cuckoos, boat riding, fishing, snowboarding, playing Spider-Man, and more. There's plenty more that I would love to talk about, such as the amazing music and sound design, some of which I talked about already, the environmental storytelling, the importance of all the unimportant side characters, the boss design, puzzles, the story, and the form of narrative storytelling this game uses, the secret locations, the Easter eggs, and references from other games, and so much more. But this video is already long enough as it is. In all, the combination of awesome characters, great world building, enjoyable gameplay, a fantastic story and attention to detail, including both the main quest and side quest material, makes Twilight Princess truly one of the very best Zelda games of all time.